Hi guys. I hope everyone is continuing to do the best they can and is doing well over this quarantine break. A lot of you guys in the surveys that I posted during, I think it was last week on social media about what things you wish you would have learned about in high school, didn't really learn much about. A lot of people said taxes. And so that's what we're going to look at today. I'm going to give a very brief overrun into what taxes are, what they're about. I'm by no means an expert on taxes. I only know as much as what I've gotten from doing some research on the internet and having paid taxes myself. There are plenty of experts that are available out there that I'm sure could tell you more and give you more specific details. But for now, at least this is a friendly face that you guys are familiar with, explaining something, and hopefully this will help you guys in the future. Feel free at any time to refer back to this video. This video is not extra credit or to be used as a homework pass in any means. This is just for your benefit. So I hope you guys are willing to watch and learn some things today. So the first thing that I want to talk about, or just in general kind of state about taxes, is in my mind what makes it so kind of crazy for people to understand, and why this is something a lot of people want to learn about, that are at least high school age. What's interesting is that taxes really aren't that hard to do. What makes it difficult, or I think what makes it seem intimidating, is the fact that you guys, being high schoolers, haven't really dealt with taxes before. This is an unknown thing for you. This is not something that you see on a regular basis. This is not something you typically get an in-depth lesson about. And so because it's unknown to you, it makes it kind of scary and intimidating. And I can get that. I definitely felt that when I was in high school too. However, when you think about it, taxes are not supposed to be difficult. If pretty much everyone who's of age and making money in the United States should be paying their taxes, it needs to be a program, it needs to be some sort of system that's fairly easy to understand so that your average person can do it, and do it so that they're not making mistakes over and over again. It has to be something that's fairly user-friendly. Not saying it is for everyone, but the general idea is the average Joe has to be able to file their taxes, and so it needs to be semi-easy so that those people can do it. The first thing you need to be able to know before thinking of anything tax-related is, are your parents or guardians still claiming you as a dependent? If so, then you're not filing taxes yourself. Your information would go on their taxes because they're claiming you as a dependent. So that makes your life a lot easier. You could still do it yourself if you are being claimed by a parent or guardian, but that is typically where your information would go. If you are not being claimed as a dependent, you're making money, then you really should be paying taxes. In general, the rule is that if you make more than $12,000, you should be doing your taxes. The quote that I got directly from online says, students who earn an income of less than $12,000, which is the standard deduction, aren't required to file a tax return, but they may still want to file if they had income taxes withheld on their paychecks. And that's because if they don't submit a tax return, they may end up forfeiting the money owed to them by the United States government if they had too much withheld, for example. And so if you make less than $12,000, you are not forced to, you're not required to file taxes, but you might be missing out on some money that you might be able to get back. So that would be my recommendation, would to still be to do that. Another thing you're going to need to make sure you have before you file taxes is a few pieces of information. You need to make sure that your address is up to date so that any forms being sent to you are actually getting to you, and that that information is correct, your address. You're also going to need, when you file your taxes, to have those tax forms in front of you, which I'll mention here in a little bit. And you'll also need to make sure that you have your social security number. That is very important to know. They will be asking you that information. And so I would say that there are going to be some specific forms that a lot of you guys are going to have. if you're filing taxes, if you've got like a part-time job for college, or if you're working full-time in the summer and you're doing something, and that will be your W-2. Your W-2 is going to be the most common thing you get, and you're also going to see two other tax forms, very likely a 1099. And then if you are doing things with your student loans, you'll probably see something called a 1098. So the first thing that I want to do is to be able to show you each of those, give you a look. So first of all, you're going to need to make sure you talk to whoever employed you about what tax forms you're probably going to be getting from them, and that you have all of them before you start doing your taxes, because you don't want to file your taxes and then you get another form in the mail of something you weren't expecting, and then all those numbers are going to be off. And so you want to make sure that you've got all the forms ready to go before you actually start the process of filing. And so I want to just kind of walk through each one with you guys. You're going to see some stuff on the screen that I'll pull up here. So I will present. Let's just go with the entire screen. Perfect. Okay. So the first thing I want to pull up is a sample of the W-2. Your W-2 will look something like this. This is a sample that's just been filled out. This is obviously not real, but I wanted to make sure I found one that was actually filled out so you could see a few things. This is something that you're going to get in the mail. Some places do it online. I know Marion Community Schools has their W-2s that they're online. So I don't actually get this in paper, but my wife does. And so if you look at this, you're going to see your social security number at the top. It's going to actually have your name on it instead of Dr. B Money. It's going to have the place where you worked. You see that in box C, where it says Bestest Hospital Ever Incorporated. That'll be who your employer was. You're going to have an identification number. That's not something that you pick, that's assigned to you. You're going to have some information that'll look like it is on here. And there's going to be a lot of numbers that are on the right side. You'll see, again, if you look at the number boxes, you have your wages, the taxes withheld, Social Security wages, and all those different numbers that are broken down. What's nice about when you start doing your taxes, if you're going to be going through something like TurboTax or another online thing, they'll just say, hey, what do you have written in box 1? And the next thing, what do you have written in box 2? What's in box 3? So on and so forth. And so, again, it's a very streamlined, user-friendly approach where they're just going to ask you what's in these different numbered or lettered boxes. And so this is the idea of what a W-2 looks like. Again, you should be getting these from an employer if you worked for them for a certain amount of time. Another thing I want to show you guys is the 1099. This is something else that is a fairly common tax form that you would get from an employer by working for them. This is, again, a different sample filled out so that you can see what it looks like. Again, if you're doing taxes through something like TurboTax, you're going to have a spot where they say, do you have this tax form? And if so, you click Start, and you're just going to, just like your W-2, fill in the information that's written right on here. So you'll see, again, your information would be on the left side, the address, where you live, the company you worked for. And then on the right side, most of the time, you're going to see what kind of money that you got for this form. The income you made, some compensation of some kind, something that might just say other income. And so this is another just sample form that you might get. The other one that a lot of you are going to end up seeing would be the 1098. This 1098 is for people who are basically getting student loan interest. This is for people who took out money for student loans. Now, this is probably the form I'm least familiar with. This is not one I've seen specifically myself before when I was doing taxes. But again, you're going to see the left side is a lot of the information as far as your name and address. A lot of times it's going to have Social Security number, that stuff that you see on there. And then on the right is the numbered stuff. So that box number 1 says student loan interest received by a lender. And so a few things that I have to say about that. So I'll stop sharing that for a second, come back, get back to my own page here. Okay, so student loan interest. This is another thing, again, I'm least familiar with, so you have to bear with me. I'm just going to be reading something that I found online about that. But it says about deducting your student loan interest on taxes. If you have qualified student loan, you can deduct up to $2,500 in interest, and it's claimed as an adjustment to your income. A qualified student loan is a, and this is in quotes, loan that you took out solely to pay qualified higher education expenses, that's college, according to the IRS. And to qualify for that deduction, you have to have paid interest on that student loan in that tax year. You have to be legally obligated to pay that interest on your student loan. You aren't married and you're filing separately, and your adjusted gross income is less than the specified amount. In this case, for a single person, under $70,000. Again, Form 1098 should have been provided for you, the one that mentions student debt. They may mail you that paper copy, but a lot of times you can access that online, signing into your account. And you would have to contact a loan lender if for some reason you're not getting that form and you know you should be. Scholarships, also kind of something important to keep in mind. It says your scholarships, grants, and fellowships are considered tax-free only if you are using the entire amount to pay for tuition, fees for enrollment, books, supplies, and equipment required by your college. If you used a portion of that scholarship for something called an incidental expense, like room and board, you'll need to claim that as part of your income. So for example, say you received a $5,000 scholarship. You use half of that, $2,500, to pay tuition, and then the other $2,500 would be paying for room and board. You'll need to report that $2,500 that you used for rent and food as taxable income on another form, Form 1040, which is another form that you would receive. And so that is just some kind of good information, all the forms that you would need before you start your taxes. And when you do start, they're going to have specific spots saying, you got your W-2, this is where that information goes. Got a 1099, click this, that's where that information goes. Now, unfortunately, because I already filed my taxes and I don't want y'all to know my personal information, I can't show you specifically the steps in getting to different ways to file, but I'll tell you right now, there are a lot of ways in which you can choose to file your taxes. The first way that I would suggest would be free online programs, like how I mentioned earlier, TurboTax is one of those options. There are many different things that you can get to do your taxes. Apart from TurboTax, that's probably the one you've heard about before, but there are many ways that you can do that. So I'm going to present again and just show you a couple different options that you have besides just going to TurboTax, because there may be something better for you. So one, if you just go to the IRS website, they have a specific page that says file your taxes online for free. And then you can just scroll down and look at these options here. So this is fileyourtaxes.com, and it tells you this is what's going to happen so that you have to do it for free. TaxSlayer, OLT.com, 1040 Now, H&R Block is a really big name, Free Tax USA, EasyTaxReturn.com, and TurboTax, there it is. So this is just right on their website that they have several different options for you to choose from. I've used TurboTax for years. My wife and I, just this past year, we tried something here different called Credit Karma. This is their website where you would be able to go, and I mean, look right there at the top, tax, filed for free. So you'd be able to click on that, and it's going to take you to a place where you can file your taxes. And so it's, again, it's pretty straightforward. It kind of has to be so that the average person can do it. And you'd be able to just fill it out from that point there. So you have a lot of online options. If it helps to have a parent or guardian with you to help you get your taxes done, I would highly recommend that if they're willing to take that time, because they've probably been doing it for years and would be able to give you some tips and pointers. If you don't trust yourself to do it just through an online program, there obviously are people that you can go to that you can pay to do this as well. If you're paying a person to do it for you, a lot of the times you're going to have that safety, that kind of peace of mind that they're going to do a better job than you would. So H&R Block is an example of that. That is a specific building that you can go to. There's people there that will, as long as you have all the right forms, do your taxes for you. Or local CPAs, there's plenty of those. If you just do a decent Google search for that, you'd be able to find people that would be willing to do your taxes just for a fee. Now, I've never gone down that route before, but I know I have friends that have, and they have said that they've had good experiences, especially with companies like H&R Block. But for myself personally, I've always filed for free online. And so the next thing to talk about is, when are you supposed to have your taxes done? Taxes in general, obviously this is a very different year with the coronavirus going around, but in general, the last day for you to get your taxes in is April 15th. I would not recommend waiting until April 15th to do your taxes any of these years. You don't want to be scrambling to make sure you've got all your information. This is not something to procrastinate on like a homework assignment. A lot of times, the sooner you get your taxes done, the sooner you get your refund back. Not always the case, but again, you want to make sure you have all of your forms there in front of you before you start doing that. So I wouldn't do it too early. I will say that this year, if you still haven't filed your taxes, that's fine, because the government has extended the date for taxes to be done to July 15th instead of April 15th. So normally it's April 15th. This year it is July 15th because of circumstances being a little bit different than normal. And then it usually takes a couple weeks to get a tax refund once you've done your taxes. 2-3 weeks is usually what they tell you. I would keep any papers that you have, your old W-2s, your 1099s, your 1098s. Keep those papers when you're done filing your taxes. One, you never know if when you submit your taxes that there was something incorrect, then you'll need to use those forms again this year. You'll never know, though, even if it does work and you file your taxes correctly, if for some reason you would need those papers again. A lot of times, different websites and different companies will tell you to keep your forms for 3 to 7 years after you file taxes. So that middle ground is just nice to say, keep them for 5 years. So if you get your taxes for 2020 done, keep it till 2025 before safely shredding it, getting rid of it without just tossing it in the trash. But keep it for, I would say, 5 years is a good rule of thumb. And if you have digital copies, that's even easier for you to keep and hang on to. Another thing, when you're done with your taxes, sometimes you're going to owe money. I've talked to several of you guys who have had to do your taxes this year. Before we went on our break for the coronavirus, you guys said that some of you said you owed money, and that's going to happen sometimes. If you owe money, my recommendation, and what I've also found online, is that you just pay from your bank account directly. I wouldn't put it on a credit card or anything like that, where if you don't pay it off on time, you get interest on that too. I would pay it off sooner rather than later and from your bank account directly. That's only if you owe money, and let's hope that that doesn't happen to a lot of you. If you are getting money, you're getting a return of some kind from the state or the federal government, my personal recommendation would be to have that as a direct deposit to your bank account too. It's an easier way to do it. There's less steps to go through if it's just a direct deposit drop. Some places where you do your taxes online, this is why you kind of got to be careful of what you use, will charge a fee to maybe bundle your 2 returns together, or to file at a certain, to get your refund back in a certain amount of time. TurboTax has different levels of their program that you pay for more, you're going to get more money back. That's kind of the idea. That's not obviously always the case, but they have different levels. So if you take the free one, you might be missing out on more money, but then you'd be losing some money as well paying for the deluxe edition or premium edition. Again, we used Credit Karma this year and did not have to pay anything to do that way. So that was nice, but some places will. And sometimes if you get your refund and it costs money for the program that you use, they'll say, hey, we'll take the cost directly out of that refund, so then you're not paying something extra. So be aware of that. Really, taxes aren't so bad. I'll just say that right now. I've been paying them for years. My first couple times doing it, it was overwhelming to have all these different new things that I hadn't really seen before, and not know what to do with. I wasn't very sure, what all I needed to have, and I had to do a lot of research online to figure it out, some phone calls home. But after doing it for a couple years, I will say that I am much more comfortable doing it. It's not something that will always be like something I would say, oh, that was easy to do. It does take some time to go through, because you want to be intentional. You don't want to breeze through and miss something, and then you get email saying, hey, this was not done correctly, and have to do it again. So you would take your time with it, but I wouldn't say it's something that I would call difficult nowadays. It's something I've kind of gotten a little bit used to. Now, obviously, I work one job. I'm a teacher, so I don't have multiple jobs like some of you guys are going to have throughout college or these first few years after high school. I will say the more jobs you have in a given year, the more complicated your taxes are, because instead of, in my case, I get one W-2 and that's pretty much it. If you work in the summer waiting tables, and then you work in the dining commons at your school, and if then for like a month or two you got a second job doing maintenance for someone and you made a decent amount doing that, you might be sent 3 W-2s, and then instead of just one and keep going, you got to get all the information for all those and all the forms for those. So the more jobs you have in a given year, it is tougher because you'll have more information and more papers to keep track of. But hopefully after watching this, you'll have a slightly better understanding of what your taxes are like. Hopefully this is a tool that you can use to go back to, that you can see, and maybe it'll help you when you're doing your taxes later. But I just hope that the information that I gave in here was something you guys would be able to learn from, so that you're a little bit more comfortable when you have to start paying taxes for yourself. And as always, I do miss you guys. I hope all is going well for you. Please feel free to email me and reach out if you ever have any questions, you need some advice about something. Just let me know. Have a good one. So after reviewing the video, two things that I need to quickly correct. One is that at the beginning I mentioned how if your parents claim you as a dependent, that's where all your info goes. That is incorrect. You are claimed as their dependent, but they do not claim your income or anything like that on their taxes. If you're getting a W-2, you really should be doing your own taxes. The other minor change is that I said if you make less than $12,000, which is the standard deduction, you don't have to file taxes. That number was increased in 2019 to be $12,200, so a slight change there.